Pretty arbitrary and pretty capricious, you know what I mean? Government's not going to win on that. So that's the pushback. But 64 is to give you a little bit of planning theory. And we're going to get to this when we do the hypo. The Euclidean zoning for the last 90 years was separation of uses. Single family, multifamily, commercial, industrial, separated. Now there's something called smart growth. For those of you who have been to Meisner Park, for those of you who have been to City Place in West Palm, those are mixed-use developments. You can live, work, play, movie, theater, restaurant, all right there. So the best way to get a project approved today is for me to take off my Republican hat, put it over here, put on my liberal planner hat, go into the planning department and say, I love smart growth, I love mixed use, I've heard all this planning theory, my company's going to do mixed use. We're going to have some restaurants, we're going to have a hotel, we're going to have condos for sale, we're going to have rental apartments, we'll bring some affordable housing in, we'll put a bike rack, we'll have a place to charge your Prius, electronic. The government liberal bureaucrats are foaming at the mouth. They are going to give you the positive staff report that you want to get it to the planning and zoning to get it approved. I hate Priuses, I hate smart growth, I hate anything that's supposed to be good. I love concrete, and I love money. But I got to play the game. And if the game today is mixed use, diversity, old people come in, I'll play that game if it gets me through the process. And if you want me to do 10% affordable housing, we'll do it. You know, so you have to understand planning theory. Because the people that are, look, I teach at FAU, Urban Regional Planning Department. When I talk about Republican pro-business, most of you are not ready to throw up. My class there thinks I'm the devil. They think I'm even worse than Trump. Because they're liberal people who do goody two-shoes type people. But those are the people that are going to sit there in judgment of your plan. You got to walk their talk, okay? You're here to make money. Remember what we said last week? You do your market study, you do your regulatory analysis, but you do your pro forma. You live and die by that pro forma. And next to your bed should be three things: the Bible, picture of mom, and your pro forma. And that's what you should be doing, because that's what your boss wants. Do you deliver the money or not? And if you got to go to your boss and say, boss, we got to do a little bit of this mixed use stuff. We got to do the public realm. We got to put a walkway and a fountain so the other public that don't bring money can go and visit, because that's what the planners want. So I got a 27-story tower approved. The code only allowed 12 through a plan unit development, because I gave a great public realm. And they're eating it up, and they're taking all this good community stuff that I'm doing, and I'm sitting there saying, okay, I've mentally calculated I got $5 million of liberal goodies to give away to those people. What you want to play with them to make the public realm better, fine. Because I know that in my pro forma, I can hide $5 million in a $400 million budget any day of the week. And you got to be thinking in those terms. You got to know who's on your other side. Smart growth will spend some time with that. You can't be effective. The idea of just pouring concrete doesn't work, because the people on the other side want something better. One of the reasons I don't like architects, they actually think it's only about their building. But when you go get a project approved, the government usually cares about everything else but the building. They care about the ground level experience, the public realm, the access. And you need to care about those things. So if you're going to be in real estate, it's not just running your pro formas and doing your market study. You've got to have a sense for design, community building. Okay, 65. This is government. This is the whole barometer of government. First you plan, then you zone, then you have subdivision, then you got a couple of growth management rules, then you have a building code. This is to show you that the local government's going to hit you at the big picture where the plan should go. That's the comprehensive plan. They're going to hit you on how to zone where things should be, then how you can divide it up, another growth management about how much infrastructure you need to pay for and how much growth is allowed, and then a building code. You as a real estate person need to know every aspect of how the government can hurt you and deal with you. And then you look at 66, we spoke about this last week. A comprehensive plan is the big map that a government sets forth. It's their vision. And the vision for Sunny Isles is different than the vision for Golden Beach. A book has chapters. A comprehensive plan has elements. I suggest whenever you go to a new city, you get their comprehensive plan. First, go to their future land use element. Look out their housing element. If you want to do a deal with me in Chapel Hill, North Carolina, you better read their housing element. You know why? It's going to say every new project beyond 10 units must have 15% affordable housing. That's their element. That's their foundation. That's their community vision. But zone-in must be consistent with the comp plan. Okay, I would put a circle around 67, 68, 69. It's one big area. And this is a little bit of a legal nuance, but I think you need to understand this. Remember I said, fairly debatable, the house is the casino, they win? When the government is sitting there wearing their legislative hat, and they're saying things like, we think there should be a South Florida educational area in Davie that's going to be this thing for all these universities to come together. And they said that 30 years ago as a concept. That's them being legislative, big picture. They can almost do whatever they want. And if they wanted instead to say, no, we want this to be the rodeo capital, they win that. So whenever government's setting big picture policy, very hard to beat up on government then. In fact, it's almost impossible. Judge is going to say, I'm not going to substitute my opinion for government when they're doing legislative stuff. Because I'm not elected by the voters, they are. Okay? Now we move down to something called quasi-judicial. The city of Fort Lauderdale sets the big picture comprehensive plan. They set the big picture zoning of where things should go. You really can't challenge that. But when I go before the city of Fort Lauderdale with my little property alone, and I want to get it rezoned, and I want to get a site plan approved, the mayor actually takes off for a moment his politician hat, and he symbolically puts on a black robe. And he's sitting there, more or less in a quasi-judicial framework, where I got to be treated fairly. And he's got to balance things where if I meet the standards, I'm allowed to have it. It just can't be, nah, I don't think so because I say so. You can say, no, I don't think so, big picture legislative. But if I'm going down to my property, we've gone from a legislative to a quasi-judicial. The standards are different. Now, to make it even more, take away power from government, number 69, administrative. If I already have my site plan approved, and I prepare through an architect building plans that meet Florida building code standards, that building official must give me the building permit. Government can't say, nah, we don't think so today. We're government, fairly debatable, legislative, no. So government wears three different hats. When they're setting policy, they can do whatever they want. Sunny Isles wants 55-story towers. Golden Beach does it, legislative. But when you go to apply, you gotta be treated fairly, that's more quasi-judicial. And when there's no discretion left, let's put aside gay marriage for a moment. When a man and woman walk in to get a marriage license, the clerk can't say, are you two real? You're not compatible. I don't give you 30 days. Nah, I'm not going to give you a marriage license. If you're Sean Penn and Madonna walking in, you can't say no. You're not even going to get through the weekend. Don't waste my time. That marriage counselor must give a marriage license. There's no longer discretion. So what you need to understand at different points, government has different levels of discretion. '70. Even though I don't want to sue government because I want to develop, you always have to get ready for war. And it's war. Whenever I do a project, I hire the best consultants money can buy. I only use Kimley Horn for my traffic. I only use certain law firms. I only use certain architects. I only use certain environmental consultants. We do the best reports. We put it all in the record. That's what number 71 says, create a record. So when that government is looking at my project, I make sure I have substantial, competent evidence in the record. So if they're going to deny me, I'm going to win on appeal. And if they have a good city attorney, they're going to try to put substantial, competent evidence in the record to defend why they turned me down. So if your boss says, why did you spend $100,000 on consultants getting ready for the public hearing? Because we had to do it right, we were going to war. You got to get your ducks lined up. Okay, 72, 73. I've told you this before. If you don't like what the zoning code says, change it, get a rezoning. You don't like the comprehensive plan, do a comp plan amendment. Easier said than done.
Yeah, how long does that
It takes a while, but let me tell you something. Let me tell you how I've made money in my life. I was doing a 1,000-acre project. I had 3 golf courses, 1,000 homes. I then bought agricultural land right next to me for $35,000 an acre from a bunch of farmers. I put 8 good old boy farmers together. I then went through the comp plan amendment process, went through the rezoning process, the site plan process, to get another 700 homes and a Jack Nicklaus golf course approved to put there. Didn't put a single shovel in the ground. I went from $35,000 an acre to $435,000 an acre in about a year and a half time, just by pushing paper, creating value. So if you create value every time you go from no entitlements to entitlements, because you remove risk. Real estate is risk allocation. Let me tell you something. I tell this to my other students. If you're going to buy that beat-up Winn-Dixie shopping center, to knock it down, to rebuild, to do something nice, you better make sure you know what you're doing. Because it might be better off buying a nice shopping center that's already existed, that's already making cash flow. Because going through the entitlement, development, construction process is kind of like going to the dentist without any Novocaine. It's not fun. This is not an easy process, okay? So I know many people including some of my partners, who will never do development, will never go after entitlements. They'd rather pay a premium for an existing shopping center that's already cash flow positive. Okay, 74. We spoke about this. Once you figure out what your property is zoned, you then go to the zone-in text. You start with the map, then you go to the zone-in text, and that gives you height, limitations, setbacks, other regulations on what you can and can't do. Okay, 75, subdivision. Remember I said I started with my acres I bought from the farmer? I then want to subdivide it into neighborhoods. I then want to plat the land into lots that are 100 by 150. You can call them lots 1 through 10 or 20 through 80, whatever. That's called the platting process or the subdivision process. If you live in a single-family home today, in a traditional type neighborhood, someone most likely eventually took land that was once farmland, then got a master plan approved at a big picture level, then did a subdivision plat that divided it up and put the roads in. You need to know that entire process. 76. We spoke about this a little bit. I want to build homes. Government's going to say, yes, you can build homes, and we'll give you a building permit. We want $5,000 for the building permit fee for our staff to review it. But we also want $9,000 for a park impact fee. We want $9,000 for a library school impact fee. We want $9,000 for a transportation fee. So the $5,000 review is nothing compared to the $27,000 in impacts. Who eventually pays those impact fees? No, the developer puts the money out to the government. Who ends up paying for them? The buyer. It all gets passed along. And this is what I always say. Gee, liberal Democrat Hillary Clinton lover over there, I guess you really don't really care about affordable housing. Because if you continue to put all these burdens on me, I'm just going to put the burden on the new home buyer, and the average house in Palm Beach County or Broward County is now $427,000, and no one can afford it. So that's the balance. The more government thinks they can push it on to Donald Trump, no, he ain't paying. He pushes it on to the home buyers. And now we have no one who can afford a home. And now they're going to rent forever. It's a balance like everything else. But what you need to know on 76, expect to pay impact fees and expect to also have to do land dedications. Back in the days when there were big parcels of land before everything got built, your typical subdivision, a developer would get 1,000 acres. He would dedicate to Palm Beach County or Broward County a site for an elementary school, a site for middle school, a site for a high school, a site for a fire station, a park, other open space, put the roads in, so that 1,000 acres ends up with 200 acres of developable good stuff for homes. But you've made it really intense and put some good homes on it. But you dedicate stuff away. So what you need to know, expect the government to try to get impact fees and land dedications. But if you've been listening, you would then go back to items 50, 51, and 52, which is the Nolan-Dolan Kuntz test. It says, okay, you can ask for land dedications and impact fees, but you need to have a rational nexus. It must be roughly proportionate to what I'm doing. Number 77, you need to know what performance bonds are. If you subdivide the farmland down to single-family lots, and now you want to start building that community, the government's going to say, look, we don't trust you, Mr. Developer, you might go bankrupt. We want you to put up a cash bond so the roads, the water, the sewer, the drainage that you say you're going to do will get done. So if you go out of business, there's an insurance company that's going to give us the money to do it. So you got to make sure your pro forma has a line for performance bonds.
So, what is that?
That was performance bonds. Okay.
I get the example, but
Okay.
I don't put it in words.
What you say is this: if government's required to do infrastructure improvements, roads, water, sewer, drainage, lakes, okay? The government wants to make sure you don't get half-built roads and half-built water. So whenever I do a project that has infrastructure, because eventually, just so you know, 50 years ago, the government would build the new roads, the new water, the new sewer. It doesn't happen today. Developers build the roads, the water, the sewer, the drainage, and what they do, they turn it over to the government when they're done to maintain it. So if you go to a non-gated community out in the western suburbs, the Arvida Corporation built the town of Weston. They put the road in, and under that road is a water line and a sewer line, and the side has drainage swales. The developer built that. The homeowners don't want that. They turn it over to the government. So then the government maintains the water, the sewer lines. But the government wants to make sure they get completed. That's why you gotta put up a bond. Okay? We're gonna wrap it up soon. We'll get a little bit more, then I see a natural break coming. I think we're gonna get to 84, and then we'll pick up some of the environmental next week. 78, growth management regulations, adequate public facility ordinances concurrency. I am a very, very good developer. However, I have not figured out a way to sell a house to someone that doesn't have water or sewer, right? You all expect there to be water and sewer to the house, right? You've got to provide certain infrastructure. And that infrastructure needs to be there concurrent when people move in. That's where you get the word concurrency. So the government has said back in 1985, we passed what was known as the Florida Growth Management Act, the strongest act in the nation. And what it said, very simple, Mr. Developer, you must make sure there's adequate levels of service for water, sewer, drainage, solid waste, parks, schools, and roads, concurrent with your people moving into your project. Otherwise, you can't build. That's a pretty strong thing. Because as a developer, my goal is to build, get your money, and I don't care if you deal with traffic coming home. I don't care if your kids go to overcrowded school. If you're worth anything, your kids belong in private schools anyway, okay? Hey, this is a nice chair here at Milford. What we have at FAU is not like this private school, okay? So, but yes, I agree with the water sewer. But when I was developing, when they said you've got to have roads in place, the problem was this: South Florida just mushroomed overnight in the 80s, 90s. Traffic everywhere. Development came to a halt. There's this thing called concurrency. The good thing, being a Republican, there's a lot of Republicans up in Tallahassee. After they passed the 1985 Growth Management Act, Governor Bob Graham was taken out, Republicans took over the governor's mansion, and we started to water down the Growth Management Act. Governor Rick Scott, they should put his picture up there on Mount Rushmore, has basically gutted growth management. Okay? He's basically said, go build. I have projects that I've been able to extend and extend and extend and extend. You know what the governor does? Anytime there's any wind anywhere in Florida where we think there's a hurricane maybe going to come, he calls an emergency and then he gives every developer another 6 months and all their permits. So it doesn't even need to hit Broward County. If it hits the Panhandle, I'm going, thank you, Governor Rick Scott. I just got another 6 months. Pendulum goes both ways. But there was once a time when the left side took over, who cared more about the environment and quality of life than development interests. Now yes, everything has to be a balance. But don't balance and put me out of business. Well, what you need to know is that many people, I teach an introduction class in another university for planners called Planning and Growth Management. I tell them this the first day. I say, look, if you know nothing else tonight after the first day, you go home to Grandma, and Grandma says, what did you learn tonight? And you say nothing. She's going to say, no, what did you really learn? Planning is like the gas pedal. Growth management is like the brake. And there's a balance. Your job is to build, 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 and not let all of these things get in the way. And you know the beauty of it is? I love money. You want to know why? It solves problems. Remember I mentioned to you on my Be Here More project, I had to write a $1.2 million check to Broward County for buses? I don't care if I have to buy my way out of it with your impact fees. Just let me build. But what was happening 10, 20 years ago? Stop, can't build. You don't have enough roads, can't build your project. Can I buy my way out? No, you can't, unless you want to do a $50 million extension on A1A, which I can't do. So now it's more like a pay-and-go framework. Okay? So we've all played the game where, okay, we know we're not going to solve the problem. We know population's coming down here. So we pay a little bit of lip service and we pay impact fees. Okay? Well, what you need to know, your job is to get your project approved, get your project built. And you know how you look at it? You don't need to be a construction expert, but you know you're going to need to pour concrete, right? You know you're going to have to hang drywall. You know you're going to have to paint. Those are line items in your construction budget. So you look at this concurrency, growth management, impact fees as just another line item in the budget to do business. So if you remember the movie The Firm with Tom Cruise, who's a tax lawyer, you got to think like a tax lawyer. No matter what Congress does to change the tax code, you will find a way around it for the benefit of your client. I didn't say break the law. I said find a way around it. So now, after the growth management laws have settled down, you can build in South Florida. It's going to cost you some money, which means it makes South Florida a very expensive place to live with all this. But your job is to just figure out how to build. So let me just get from where we are at 78. I quickly want to just get to 84, then we'll call it a night. We'll pick up with 85 next week. Put a circle around 79, 80, 81, 82. The first three that are italics are names of famous cases dealing with growth management. Ramapo was a New York case. It was the first case that basically said government gets to decide when you can build, when they're ready to bring infrastructure there. And you can't force the government to bring infrastructure all the way out to your property. And it's not a taken if they don't bring it out there when you want it. That was a way to control growth.
Government gets to decide what infrastructure.
Well, when it gets brought out to your property. Let's assume I am in the middle of downtown Fort Lauderdale. You are 6 miles outside of the town. You would love to build a suburban home. I control the water and sewer. You want me to bring it out to your property. No, we're not ready. Someday we'll get there, but not now. So this was the first early growth management case where the court said, yes, the elected officials decide when utilities get brought out. Petaluma was a case in California, just outside of San Francisco. And Petaluma is just like Boulder, Colorado, where they limit the number of building permits each year. Petaluma said, look, we know all of you would love to live where we are. We're only going to give 500 building permits a year. Someone sued, said that's a taken. Court said no, it's allowed. Those two are legitimate ways to manage growth. We'll decide when you get your water sewer. We'll decide how many units. And they did it where they did not violate equal protection. They did a lottery and did it based on performance standards, whoever had the best project. It wasn't, certain people got them and other people didn't. Boca Raton case failed. Boca Raton, being snooty, basically came out with an absolute cap and said, we're only going to have 41,000 homes, that's it, never again. Pull up the boat, ramp, fence, no one else can come on board, stop. Court said no, people have the right to move and go into communities. You can't put an absolute cap.
They put a cap on how many people can move into.
They tried to, and it got turned down. They lost. They basically said, okay, we've got 40,000 people, homes today. We don't want any more of those New Yorkers coming down here. We'll allow 1,000 more, that's it. And they thought that was good. Court said, no, you can't do that. So what you need to know, just as a concept, government can control growth. But the more important one is 82. This is how it's done in Portland, Oregon. This is how it's done in Miami-Dade County. It's called the Urban Growth Boundary Line. Picture Miami. I'm sure you've seen things with like a virus that gets released and you see the rings grow out from it. The circles keep going out. Well, in the 1960s, maybe you could only go 3 miles outside of Miami. Then you'd go 6 miles out, then 10. Today you can get down well past Kendall towards Homestead. But there is an urban growth boundary line in Miami-Dade County, and if you're on the left side of the line, you can build. You're on the right side of the line, you can't. That's allowed. And how do you get the line changed? You hire a major law firm downtown that's made many connections to elected officials, and you do a study and you try to move the line. The point of 79, 80, 81, 82 is you want to make sure your property's on the right side of the line and you can build. And government's trying to balance this. We spoke about 83 and 84 briefly before, a little while ago, about a moratorium. If the growth is getting so bad, now you may not be able to appreciate this. 1970s, South Florida, sleepy little town. It's where old people came to die. How many of you, I have an American Express, I probably have about a $200,000 credit limit on it. How many of you like to go to South Beach after class tonight? Let's go, right? 1970s? No, we're not going to South Beach. That's where old people from Brooklyn are, having their early bird dinner, and the ambulances are coming to take them to the hospital and then to die. No one was on South Beach. And then the drug dealers came there. There was no Madonna. There was no nightclubs. Seriously. And it changed. But my point was, South Florida 1970s was really where everyone's grandmother had a place. And then it just mushroomed overnight. Government has the right to use certain growth management controls, and they have the right to basically say, stop, moratorium. No more development, no more growth, we're going to study. Maybe 6 months, maybe 12 months. I'd show you that one case from Tahoe, 32 months. And during that time, government's allowed to do something called zoning in progress, where basically they say, look, you right now have the right to do that 15-story Bahia Mar hotel. We're telling you right now, we're doing a down zone. We're studying it. We think we're going from 15 to 12. We got this thing called zoning in progress. And during this time period until it's final, you can't follow the existing. You can only go under the new. It's a way to make sure all of you people don't wake up one day and hear, guess what? Government's going to screw you. You better get your plans in the next 30 days to beat the deadline. And all of a sudden, the whole thing government's trying to do doesn't work out because we all beat the deadline. So I just need you to know the concept of moratorium and zoning in progress. But we've gone through 84 bullets tonight. We probably went through 6 weeks at least of a law school land use course. My goal is to expose you to concepts. I'm sure your head hurts and your fingers hurt from typing. We've covered a lot of ground. We will finish this next week. What's that? No. But my main, 5 more minutes and we'll go. My goal tonight was just to scratch the surface on concepts. Okay? So you now get exposed to things that you may not have known about. But remember, I have never done a real estate deal in my life by myself. Donald Trump has never done a real estate deal in his life by himself. This is a team sport. Okay? This is like football. Tom Brady, the quarterback, doesn't win the game. The team wins the game. There will be a land use attorney, a real estate attorney, a senior veteran on your team that you're part of. My goal is to make you be able to hold your own in a discussion with that person. Okay? If we're next door in the Shepherd Broad Law School, we would be going through this 5 times slower, because I would be making sure you understood every legal nuance. My goal is to make sure you can talk to them. And I can tell you this, it's probably easier to teach you legal concepts than it is to teach those legal people pro formas and other things. Because most lawyers that I know don't do well in business school. You know, it's not how we're made. You know. But we've covered a lot. But next week, please, read the entire Graham v. Estuary Properties case. It will take you 12 to 15 minutes to read that. Quickly skim the Lingle Chevron case. And you're going to see some friendly names. You're going to see Nolan, Dolan. You're going to see Penn Central. You're going to see Pennsylvania Coal. Just read that as a framework. Don't get caught up in the facts. But please read the Kunz case. Now, one last thing I got to teach you. Roe v. Wade was a 5-4 decision. Okay? Obamacare, being blessed, was a 5-4 decision. The people who win get the right to opinion. But the people who lose get to write an opinion as well, called the dissent. So when you read the Kunz case, it was a decision 5-4, and the losing lawyer, sometimes you lose, you say, okay, I lost, no big deal. But sometimes you lose, you're pissed. And you want the world to know you're pissed. But many times, a 1980 dissent becomes the foundation for a 1990 affirmative decision. So just so you know, I would like you to read the dissent as well in the Kunz case. It's not law, the Kunz, K-O-O-N-T-Z. Read the dissent. It'll be another 12 minutes of your time. This is a smart woman who went to Harvard Law School. She used to represent Obama in his first term. Smart woman. And she's saying, my fellow lawyers got it wrong. Okay? My point of it is, if a bunch of Harvard and Yale lawyers can't agree among legal things, do you as a business person want to take your chance in a courtroom? On a 5-4? No. Learn how to settle. But learn to see the both things. Because next week, I want to ask you, was she right in her dissent? Or not? So that's what we're going to do next week. Week 4 is when we do the Byrd-Harris narrative, hypo. I don't want to overwhelm you with work, but like I said, start thinking about a city you like, a project you like for your project. Yes?
You said the name of 3 cases.
It's on the syllabus.
Okay.
Yeah, they're right there. Graham, you need to read. The Kunz case versus St. John's River, you need to read and know the facts. The lingo is just to give you a framework. It's not as important. But when we get together next week, I will knock out 85 through 130. We will start these cases. If you have the time, stay current on the book if you can. And we will eventually highlight the book. But I will say this. Unofficially, if you wait 2 or 3 weeks and then sit down and find 2 hours of quiet time and read this, you're going to realize how much you do know by going through this stuff. This is like a reinforcement of what I'm doing. Any questions of me?
Lingo and Chevron, you're going to send that to us?
No, it's all there.
Oh, so it's in there?
It's in the stuff I sent you.
Okay.
Now, one last thing, so I don't screw you up. In one of the emails that I sent you, there were 3 attachments. There was the Lingle case, which I want you to read. I think that's the second attachment on that. The first attachment is also about Lingle, but it was a brief by the American Planners Association trying to encourage the court to go a certain way. If you want to read that, it will help. Well, there's, I think I said attachment for class 3. And I think there's 3 PDFs attached. The first one is Lingle, but not the court decision. It's a brief by lawyers to the court before they decide, trying to influence them. You don't need to read that unless you have the time and you're really interested and you don't have a life. The second one is actually the court decision. That's the one I want you to focus on. Okay? And the front cover will say, American Planning Association amicus brief. The second attachment will say U.S. Supreme Court decision. That's what I want you to read. Okay? But I gave you both just so you could see how it went from the lawyers arguing it to the court making a decision. But the most important, and then I will let you go in 2 minutes, if you truly, and I have no idea if the other professor's killing you as well. All of you take class on Tuesday, right?
Yes.
If you're getting limited for time, you don't need to go through the A through Z. I'll go through that with you. You don't need to worry about chapter 5 in the book. I'll eventually get that there. Read the Graham versus estuary properties. That's 15 minutes of your time. If you have to skip lingo, we can. I'll point out the key things when we get together. But I really need you to read the Kuntz versus St. John's River management case. It's as current as you can get. It's 2.5 years old. It's about Florida. It pulls all this stuff together. Okay? Don't get over-focused on every aspect. Get the flavor. We'll work through it. But it's real hard if you haven't even looked at it. Okay? Any other questions?
Yeah, just to put it in our brain for the project, you want us to just keep an eye out for things that are going on in Fort Lauderdale or anywhere?
Where do you live?
I live in Plantation.
Okay. There's some stuff going on in Plantation. My project, my other school did a whole thing on the whole Midtown Plantation.
Okay.
If you're interested in that, pick Plantation. Pick something so you can learn about it. If you think you're going to go to a certain area or a certain type of job,
Right.
use this to help you learn about that.
Understood. Okay.
Okay? And the thing is, they all have zoning issues, they all have comp plan issues, they all have site plan issues. And then all of us will stand before the class, even our 2 friends in Palm Beach Gardens, we'll do a presentation so the whole class says, wow, there's a common way governments deal with real estate developers on this. Okay? But I need you to really have that aha moment that you can get a job with any South Florida developer, and if they're looking at a project, you can say, ooh, 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 let me start with the due diligence. And if you leave this program, you can do the pro forma due diligence, you can work with the marketing company for a market study due diligence, and after this class, you can do the regulatory due diligence. Because there's no way you can do real estate without doing all 3 of those. If you can't do those 3, you don't belong in this class. I'm sorry. If you can't do those 3, you don't belong in this profession. So they have to get done. Anyone who buys real estate without looking at the market, the finances, or the government impact is a fool. And none of you are fools. Okay, thank you. Good night. We're out before 10 o'clock. Thank you. Now, guys and girls too, I don't want to sound sexist. A lot of these cases you can like read during this weekend's football games. It's not like you have to do it quiet. You know, I need to get a flavor because we will spend time in class on it. So you got to learn how to multitask at times. Nothing like doing half of a law school class in 3 hours.
You want to go? I have a small question. We're starting for next class, but and fairness and equal protection. How is that the Seminoles are the only people that get to do casinos and get? Yeah, I know how they.
Well, first of all, they're their own nation, so they have different rights. Yeah, they have rights come from the federal government.
But they make deals, like they just recently made another deal with
Yeah.
the government.
Yeah, well, that's politics at its worst. You know that expression, bad facts make bad law? You know,
But
everyone...
it's in our land, so how is it fair for the rest?
No, but it's don't view the Seminoles, view them as Bahama or Colombia or Costa Rica. They're their own nation. Or view them as Puerto Rico.
But like, in Jupiter, you're not allowed to detach structure by the water in the intracoastal. But if you hire a Seminole to come do a ticking, no questions asked.
Yeah. There's never going to be an explanation that's going to get you comfortable with every aspect.
Unless you join the government, right?
Yes.